Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be going over with you Durga, our newest 5-star AoE archer. Durga comes to us at an interesting time where I think a lot of people on the JP community were expecting a different unit to show up on the banner. Obviously, people were hyped for this unit, but instead, again, they were thinking it was going to be someone else. However, we do get this, and this is certainly a blessing in disguise as Durga comes to us as yet another, again, AoE arts archer here. So every single time we managed to have gotten one of these over the years, they seem to be pretty good. There's obviously been a couple exceptions, but hey, again, I think Durga is going to be a really solid unit for you guys, and you guys are going to see why as I go through the kit. She has a ton of power mods, a ton of niches, and just overall general usability that I think is just going to make her really strong. She certainly shows the power creep in design, being a year 7 unit at this point compared to some of the earlier iterations that we saw in the Archer class. So I think it's certainly going to be a welcome addition that a lot of people are going to like. And we're going to start out by talking about the fact that she is limited. So she doesn't have that advantage over her other counterparts that are also considered to be widely good. So talking about a unit like Jarcher there, she's also going to be limited due to summer banners. Now, I think that's not a huge concern because at least as of how JP has been playing things lately, we've started to see that, again, they are trying to offer units on a more annual basis, which I think is going to be really good. I think the issue that we have is that potentially, again, it's just going to be in the eye of the beholder. It's going to be how they choose to run her banners as to whether or not you have the opportunity to get her after this initial banner. So again, right here, this is with the release of Paper Moon. This is banner number 2. But again, who knows when she'll get another banner after that. So again, pay that heed. But the other option that tends to be there besides just Jarcher is going to be Zenobia. And Zenobia is a really quality option for a lot of people, but Zenobia is a 4-star who is permanent. So there is a lot more capability of getting her, both on her initial rate up during Halloween, as well as, again, just being permanent so she can spook. On top of that, there was at least one 4-star ticket that Zenobia was on, so you will have that opportunity as well. So I think that is all going to factor into your considerations as to whether or not you should roll Durga. Again, if Durga is waifu for you, that's not going to matter though. So let's go ahead and dive right into the kit. Looking right here, I believe she now has the highest attack stat of all archers, which is certainly really nice. Now, just keep in mind that, remember, the kit is not everything, but the one good thing that I can say about the attack stat right here being high is that this does mean that her carding should be very good over the stretch of things. You're not going to have to worry about her being too anemic in terms of her firepower, and so instead the concern is actually going to come with her HP here being only 13k. This is a value that we see a lot of 4-stars at, so seeing a 5-star at this certainly is cause for concern, but I think you'll see it does get at least partially addressed as we go through. Now, taking a look right here, she is Sky Attribute. She is, again, going to have 1.48 and 8% here on her star absorption and star generation, respectively. The 1.48 is a little bit under the 150 star absorption that we normally see for the Archer class, but still, it's nothing too bad. She is an arts unit, so that's kind of to be expected. I think the real concern is going to come here with her NP charge attack. At only 0.3, this is an anemic NP charge rate. But you're going to see that it's not going to be too huge of an issue, as again, just with double Castoria, she can manage to refund up to 80%. So I do believe that at least if you're going up against 3 enemy waves, if you're going in with a 3rd support, there will be no concerns about her being able to 3-turn. The issue is going to be, what do you do when you don't have 3 enemy waves? And we'll talk about that as we get deeper in. So again, she has NP charge defense of only 3%. That's standard, so nothing too much to talk about right there. A death rate here of 22.5. This is actually pretty close to average, so nothing too much to be concerned about there either. Her alignment is lawful balanced. Balanced is a rather rare one, so it's definitely a good thing to have. That means it's not going to be superbly exploitable, but the downside here is that obviously you're going to run into scenarios where certain units buffs that may be only buffing good or only buffing evil or only buffing, summer or something like that, they're not going to impact her. That's going to be the issue that you're going to run into whenever you have a rare alignment. She is female gender. She's divine spirit, a goddess servant, hominide servant, humanoid, immune to pigify, living human, pseudo servant, writing, servant, 7 nights servant, weak to intimate elish, and in stage 3 she is levitating. That is a huge list of traits. There's a lot there that can be exploited, including female and divine, as well as humanoid. But certainly there are going to be any number of enemies that she'll have to watch out for in that regard, because she can take extra damage from them. Now, again, that's to your benefit if you ever end up having to fight against her, as that'll just mean that you have a lot of ways to exploit her weaknesses. But still, that is a huge amount of traits that she might also get a benefit from if the target, say, is like Setheno and buffs divine allies. There you go. That would be another way that she could gain a little bit of an extra bumper crop from someone. Looking at her overall kit here, her deck, sorry. Again, she has double arts, double quick. I'm sure a lot of people would probably prefer if she were triple arts, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that that is not going to be a concern for Durga, and you'll see why as we go in. Again, her hit counts here are actually all above average, with only the extra attack being average. The 4-hit quick is 1 above average, the 4-hit arts is 1 above average, and the 5-hit buster is 2 above average. So again, she only has the 1 buster card there, which is at least somewhat of a concern, but hey, it is still going to be a decently strong buster card with 5 hits, as well as all of that solid attack power there. But again, having basically 4 cards that specialize in NP generation here is going to be a really nice thing. However, I think the ultimate concern is, regardless of the hit counts, the fact that the NP charge rate here is so low. So it is going to be a factor that you're going to consider when using her. Now, looking at her first skill here, she has, again, the ability to charge her own gauge by 50% on a 6-turn cooldown. So now something like the low NP gain rate makes a lot more sense, as you'll be able to start her out with this, again, potentially, doing something like having her append unlocked, using the 50% charge to get her to 60%, and then throwing in like double Castoria NP gain buffs. And there you go. She pretty much has full NP gain capability right there on turn 1. So this is still a really nice thing that you can do, and then you could just basically end up topping her off with, again, additional Castoria attack ups that give 30% charge. Like I said, if you're up against 3 enemy sets, then you're going to get at least 80% charge out of her, so you're going to be looking at just being easily able to top her off. She's going to be a very fluid looper in spite of her NP gain rate. Big chunk of that is going to be because it's handled by her NP hit counts, and because Castoria does a lot of load lifting with regards to any arts unit. So again, I do think she'll be solid. The concern will be, as we talked about, what do you do when it's an odd set wave where it's, 2 enemies or 1 enemy? That's where I think you might want to hold on to, obviously, her 50% charge here, and instead try to utilize that to help her get over the hump. So if you're going up against a single enemy, maybe, again, try to just go ahead and NP, kill it, and then use the charge to make up for the lack of refund that you would have gotten on that wave. But certainly then that's going to involve taking a third support, someone else that can either further enhance her NP gain, or probably the better option, someone that can just give her brute force charge like Oberon. Now again, on top of this though, you do have the party's NP stage overcharged by 1 time for 3 turns. So again, this is a really nice buff to have, because we've talked a lot over the years about the Invincible comp. I have a guide talking about it currently out that I produced not too long ago. And Durga would be someone that would function extremely well in the arts version of the Invincible comp. Because if you guys remember, I talked about how the Invincible comp has a tendency to function on a 3-turn cadence. This is enforced due to the fact that Castoria's NP cannot overlap its effect. So you kind of want to get everything working on that 3-turn cadence. The upside here is that obviously that is allowing you some time to get back to the NP and be able to cover the party. The downside is that you need to get back within 3 turns and cover the party. So the cool part about this is utilizing Proto Merlin in the Invincible comp over time. Proto Merlin also has a skill that provides overcharge to the party for 1 time over 3 turns. The problem with her skill is it's also on a 6-turn cooldown. Well, then if you look at someone like Durga here, who has hers on a 6-turn cooldown, you could potentially stagger this, so that you could end up utilizing Durga's for the first sort of 3-turn cadence, and then Proto Merlin's for the next 3-turn cadence. And that would allow you to at least always make sure that you have that overcharge stack as long as you're staggering them. And that'll get you the extra, again, sort of stacks for everybody's NP, as well as obviously Castoria's Solemn Defense to help protect the party. So it's really nice that she has this, as it's going to function sort of in tandem with the other aspects of the art's invincible comp. And that, I think, is really good. Her second skill here grants herself invincibility for 3 attacks, 3 turns. And again, that right there, like we talked about, the concern over her health, not going to be too big of a deal when you at least have a hard defense skill in here. I think the concern is obviously going to be that it's just limited to a number of attacks. So if you use it at the wrong time, you might still end up dying. Just make sure that you try to utilize it appropriately if you're going up in a challenge scenario. But again, maybe you're in a challenge scenario, maybe you have Castoria to help protect you, or maybe you have someone like Tamamo to help get back to the cooldown in time so that you're not too worried about this. On top of this, though, the skill ends up increasing her own quick arts and buster card performance for 3 turns each by 20%. This is sort of important, as this is going to factor into her overall refund, as again, the arts up will impact both her NP's damage and refund amount. But hey, it's only 20% and her NP already had very low NP gen, so if you had to delay this a turn, it's probably not the end of the world. That being said, still nice to have the extra little bump up in damage there. Her third skill here is a very interesting one. It's going to increase her own NP damage for 3 turns. That right there is 30%. That will scale with Oberon if you were to use his third skill on her. So that would be able to be doubled up. And so that's going to be a really nice thing. It's all on a 5-turn cooldown as well. On top of that, it's going to ignore invincibility for 1 turn, so you're not going to care about having to take something like Honey Lake unless you just really need it for, again, the additional like card damage and stuff. Or again, you know, something like Sweet Crystal, if you really need that invincibility pierce, you're going to be okay because you have it as part of her kit on demand should you require it. Obviously, if the boss has sort of spammable invincibility, that might be another concern, but hey, she at least has this leg up on her other counterparts in that regard. Now, the real head turner about this skill, though, is the fact that it changes all her own command cards to arts for 1 turn. So this is very similar to Dragon Core with Artoria, how when she presses her Mana Burst skill, it is going to change all of her available cards to Buster cards. Instead, with Durga, we get the ability to change all of her available cards into arts cards. This does require you to have the cards on that specific turn, but this does mean that forming a triple arts Brave Chain is pretty easy as long as you utilize the skill effectively. So again, I think that's a really, really strong aspect to it, especially given the fact that her NP damage here is, again, going to be 3 turns. You can kind of utilize this whenever you want. Obviously, better to use it early rather than later, as you'll get the beneficial effect for all 3 NPs if you're looping with her. But certainly, you could delay this if you had to, if you were trying to wait for the right time to card, especially if you know you've got a lot of Castoria buffs and you know those arts cards are going to be hitting hard for you. So again, I do think this is a really, really nice thing. I think this can be utilized quite effectively, especially at lower NP levels where you maybe wouldn't be able to clean clear something. Now, looking at her passive skills, she gets a whole lot. She gets Magic Resistance A here for debuff resistance by 20%, which is just strong naturally. And then again, she gets Riding A here for an additional 10% quick performance to those 2 extra quick cards. She gets Independent Action for some extra critical damage, Goddess Essence B for, again, even more debuff resistance, topping her out at a whopping 42.5% resistance right there. It's going to be really hard to try and land debuffs on this character if they are an enemy you're fighting against. And then again, also just a little bit of a slight flat damage increase. This is 225 extra damage to attacks, so nothing too major, but hey, it's better than not having it. And then, again, she gets a very unique passive here that sort of increases her arts performance by 10% even more. And this is just a permanent passive. And then increase own critical damage by 10%. So that is very strong as far as passives go in order to help her both in her damage output and her NP gain. And now you're kind of beginning to see why they set the NP gain so low. Now, again, looking at her append skills here, her second skill is Mana Loading. I do think this is probably still the one that you want to get first because, again, especially when we're dealing with our arts loopers here, so much is hinging upon their refund. And I think with such a low NP gain, she is going to be someone that really wants any sort of just solid charge that she can get. So allowing her to have that is just going to sort of loosen up your sort of skill options for turn one. Again, maybe this is easier to get her 200% charge for turn one, or maybe this is just easier for you to sort of like charge her passively from the overflow from other cast areas as you're trying to charge up another unit to take out a wave. This would allow Durga to sort of just get there on her own, again, fairly easily, as she would only need, with her mana loading right there and her 50% charge, some sort of source of 30% charge to overflow onto her. So I do think that would be really, really nice, as that would allow her to be like sort of rotated after the fact or something, maybe on a turn two or something. But hey, it's up to you to determine how to use her. I still think the mana loading is the one I go with first. That being said, there are some really strong considerations for both the first and the third append here. For starters, the extra attack finesse, as we've talked about before, is not just not just a damage boost. It is also a star generator and a NP gain boost that you will see as well. So this one's strong naturally. But then when you consider the fact that you have the ability to change all of your arts cards, all of your cards to arts for one turn, this allows you to form the 3 of a kind card type for like triple arts there that gives you an extra bonus on your extra attack hit there. So extra attacks have a tendency to hit harder when they have been used in a 3 of a kind brave chain. That is really, really nice for her, and so that might be something that would be worth consideration, though again, she is an AoE unit, so ask yourself how often you see yourself utilizing this. If you're going to be doing sort of solo environment type stuff, or if you think you're going to have to card a lot after the NP, that would be your consideration here. I think the third skill is worthy because, again, it's anti-berserker attack damage aptitude, and this is just always a good one to have. It's just making you hit harder against a class that you were already effective against. So again, every single unit that has these appends, it tends to be a decent one to get. Maybe not your first choice, but I would say, in my opinion, I would see myself going with mana loading first, then the anti-berserker append, and then the first append for the extra attack if the coins were an issue there. Looking at her Noble Phantasm here, again, she gets an 8-hit arts NP right here, and this is the same across both stages, just so you can see. The only thing that's changing there is, again, obviously the animation and the name, but still, it's an 8-hit AoE arts NP. This is really nice. We've talked about these sorts of hit counts and how they can impact your NP before, and again, having high hit counts as an arts unit is definitely not a bad thing. That being said, remember, this is yet again another reason why the NP gain rate was set low. For starting off right here, though, she has a Sky Attribute Power mod for one turn that activates first. So this is going to impact not just her NP, but also any subsequent carding that she does during the turn, allowing her to card even harder against a Sky enemy if she managed to not kill with the NP. So really, really nice right there. That is the benefit of a power mod versus, say, super effective. Super effective scales better. Power mod can be utilized for other things during the duration of the turn. She deals damage to all enemies, and again, then is going to reduce their defense for 20% for 3 turns after the damage has already gone out. So you won't get the benefit of this on the first iteration of your NP, but if you are NPing against an enemy, a single set of enemies over and over and over again, this does mean that you could potentially stack the defense downs on them, hitting even harder. So this will help her out, at least for some challenge considerations there, where you know you're going to be utilizing it against the same enemies. Her overcharge effect here is anti-demonic, and it is a really, really nice one. This is super effective. So again, this one's going to scale really well. I was just joking with one of my mods before this that this would be nice for the upcoming lotto for one of the nodes. But again, this is a really solid thing, I think, to have, as we often see that a lot of our AoE archers do have a very powerful niche that they can rely on. It helps them stand out. It helps them have a reason to be used. And I think Durga's damage was already not really that debatable. It was already a really solid amount even before the niches. So add those in and, well, let's take a look. So again, right here you guys can see our sort of breakdown of the AoE archers. Again, this is the NP damage list. It is always neutral damage numbers. It's always servants only under their own power at rank 10 skills with all of their foes and stuff like that. So it is not, again, going to be considering external buffs like Castoria buffs or Koyanskaya buffs coming in on these units. Nor is it effective damage against, say, like in the archer's case here, sabers. Instead, this is just what they would deal if it was neutral. So again, always take this with a grain of salt and make sure that you understand that this is a more useful tool for comparative purposes, but only if you understand how it works. So again, looking at Durga right here, she's certainly not our top dog, but at NP1 here, she's at a pretty respectable 23k. Now, this is still higher than, say, Shonagon. This is still higher than Jarcher, who I think a lot of people are going to compare her to. The difference here with someone like Durga is that she has the capability of scaling even more with these extra additional sort of niches that she has. So she can have Sky Attribute, again, on the enemy, and that's, you know, not always going to be restrictive to servants. You might see this on powerful enemies as well. So certainly this is a nice one. Demonic as well is not always restricted to servants, so it's pretty good here. But you can see the difference right here is that this is the power mod, this is the super effective. But you can combine them. An enemy might be both Sky Attribute and Demonic, and if that's the case, then Durga hits really hard. And remember, these are neutral numbers, so you can basically multiply by 2 to get the idea of what it would be if it were a saber. So definitely pretty strong damage output right there. Now, again, a lot of people are going to compare it to Jarcher and be like, oh man, Jarcher is going to have issues. Well, I don't think Durga, in that sense, has any sort of damage concern. She has decent numbers already sort of outperforming Jarcher pound for pound here. But again, I think the issue that you'll foresee over time is that the niches are what's really going to separate the two. That being said, Durga, like we already talked about, has that 80% sort of against 3 enemies type of NP gain. Jarcher has even better than this. In some cases, Zenobia might as well. So it just depends on what you're dealing with. But that is, I think, going to be the concern, is that Durga will potentially have some NP gain issues, whereas the other 2 options don't. So her benefit is she has a lot more damage scalability than the other 2 do. But the downside there is she doesn't have as good of NP gain. It's up to you to determine which one you desire, which one you prefer. But I will, again, just try to say that I think they're all going to have their uses and they're all going to be useful at certain points. It's just up to you to determine whether or not you need any one of these units and whether or not you wish to actually roll for them. Now, as for what craft essence I think you would want to consider, obviously, when we have an Arts Looper that's capable of starting from 0, the immediate consideration is going to be Black Grail. At that point, yeah, it might just be super strong. It might be the best thing that she can take with its superb scalability right there, but it may not be the exact perfect thing that you need. Especially with a concern for someone like Durga, you might want to be looking at more something that has, you know, a little bit of extra NP gain or arts up, something to help that, if that ends up being a concern. Because I don't think the damage is going to be too bad of an issue for Durga. I think it's going to be instead the NP gain and what supports you can or can't get away with on any given node. That being said, assuming for a second there that you might have an NP gain issue and that you might need to start from non-zero, I think that's where something like Ocean Flyer would come back in. This one is an all attack scaling welfare craft essence that you guys will be getting coming up here with Summer 6 on NA. For those of you guys on JP, you should have already gotten it. If you haven't, again, there are numerous other options for you in the 50% charge category. And again, this one is a very solid one, as it's going to provide arts up of 8%, NP damage of 15% that can be scaled with Oberon, and again, certainly 50% charge there to make it so that if she does come up against an odd set wave, you're not having to deal too much with, again, the charge concern. So it's up to you to determine what you want to do. I think the big test, though, will be what happens when you can't use something like Black Grail for its superb damage, or you can't use something like Ocean Flyer, and you're instead relegated to a event craft essence. That might become an issue. Certainly, you're going to want to try to play to her strengths and try to have something that you can equip on her that will give her NP gain, or again, arts up. But hey, it is what it is. You're just going to be stuck using that particular craft essence in any particular event. And that's always going to be the concern that we have with any of these units, is how they perform when we don't have the best craft essences on them. So again, let me know what you guys think about Durga. I think she's a very strong, solid addition to the roster. I think her damage scalability is kind of nutty. And I think that, again, she is going to give Jarcher and Zenobia a good run for their money. So again, let me know if you guys will be willing to roll, and I will see you guys for the next one. Have a good one.